Good morning. It's May 11th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with South Korea's plan to lower the national crisis level for COVID-19. President Yoon will address the nation in the coming hour on lowering the level to alert from the current serious. The 7-day mandatory quarantine period is expected to be downgraded to 5 days. The U.S. Consumer Price Index last month was down for the 10th straight month. Signs of inflation cooling down are raising expectations of a possible rate freeze. Google says its AI chatbot Bard is available to the public in 180 countries and also in the Korean language. The public debut comes just over a month after the tech giant launched the service. South Korea is set to lift its COVID-19 self-quarantine mandate, taking one of the last few remaining steps back to the complete pre-pandemic normalcy. During a meeting set to be presided over by President Yoon at 9:30 a.m., health authorities are expected to announce a set of eased COVID-19 protocols, including scrapping the 7-day isolation period for people with the virus. Also to be included is downgrading the country's alert level from the current serious to cautious and adjusting the infectious disease level from the second highest, Class 2, to the lowest, Class 4. Authorities could also eliminate the mask mandate in medical facilities. Now, once announced, the eased measures will likely go into effect later this month or in early June. President Yoon will hold a bilateral summit with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau next Wednesday in Seoul, upon the 60th anniversary of their diplomatic relations. South Korea's top office announced that the Canadian leader will arrive for a 3-day official visit next Tuesday, following Yoon's trip to Canada last September. The occasion will be a chance for the two countries to share their vision for future cooperation, according to spokesperson Lee Do-eun. He added that the leaders will also celebrate the history of friendship and cooperation between the two countries based on their shared universal values such as freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. Over in the U.S., the inflation slowed for a 10th consecutive month in April, now leading to questions if the Fed will freeze the rate at their next policy meeting. Our Lee Seung-ja has more.
According to the U.S. Labor Department's Consumer Price Index released on Wednesday, U.S. consumer prices rose 4.9% on year, down from the 5% reported in March. The latest numbers show that the U.S. is seeing inflation slowing for a 10th straight month, a huge decline from its 40-year high of 9.1% seen last June. April's inflation figure is also the smallest yearly increase since April 2021. On a monthly basis, however, consumer prices have increased 0.4%, following a 0.1% increase in March. The latest inflation figures come on the back of another drop in grocery bills, which offset a rebound in gasoline costs. Gasoline prices in April jumped 3%, while grocery prices dropped for a second straight month. Despite the mixed figures, there are signs that inflation is continuing to cool. And these signs are making economists wonder whether the U.S. Federal Reserve is finally ready for a rate freeze in their next FOMC meeting in June. The U.S. Central Bank has previously indicated that it will take into account future economic indicators such as inflation and employment trends, as well as April's CPI before it makes its decision on the key interest rate. Bloomberg noted that with clear signs of inflation easing, the U.S. Fed has room to freeze its rates in the next FOMC meeting. However, other watchers are less optimistic as inflation levels are still far from the U.S. Central Bank's target of 2%. The U.S. Fed earlier this month raised its key interest rate by another 25 basis points, the 10th consecutive time that rates were raised. The next FOMC meeting is slated for June 13th to the 14th. Lee Seung-ja, Arirang News.
Google's AI chatbot, known as Bard, is now available for use by the public in English, Korean, and Japanese in 180 countries. The official launch comes as Google looks to rival Microsoft-backed ChatGPT. BARD is equipped with Palm 2, a new language model with improved multilingual reasoning and coding capabilities, capable of supporting more than 100 languages. Now, just like ChatGPT, BARD uses AI to provide human-like conversational responses when prompted by a user. And Google says it aims to provide the service in 40 languages in the near future. Prolonged rocky diplomatic Seoul-Tokyo ties have stretched out to economic relations as well. What efforts should be made to ensure that economic relations reach their full potential? For more, we turn to Professor Oh Jun-seok from Sookmyung Women's University. Good morning, Professor.
Morning.
Now, the two leaders of Seoul and Tokyo, Yoon and Kishida, agreed to further stabilize the semiconductor supply chain through cooperation between South Korea's chip manufacturing businesses and Tokyo's chip materials, parts, and equipment companies. Professor, what kind of cooperation can we expect from the two sides? I mean, any detailed project or plans can we look forward to?
After the summit meeting, they agreed to expand economic cooperation. They made a promise to take the cooperation up to the next level by stabilizing the supply chain of semiconductor, batteries, and electric vehicles, and by carrying out digital transformation between the two countries. Somewhat differently, in the focus of forward-looking cooperation, President Yoon stressed on the restoring normalization of relations, while Prime Minister Kishida stressed more on the improving movement of semiconductor investment. It's noteworthy, Korea's business lobby groups expressed suggestions to boost cooperation for resource development partnership in third countries. In the field of advanced technologies as collaboration, the two countries could address such global agendas as supply chain, energy, and climate changes. Korean companies in the material parts and equipment sectors wish for frictionlessly smooth trade between two countries. Japan stands ahead in the original technology. Lots of mutual benefits could be got when Korean companies take the parts and materials produced by Japanese counterparts to manufacture products for conglomerates that are then exported. Let's not forget that this meeting and discussion are not the end, but just the start. It'll take more time for creating shared prosperity to be materialized into a specific business project. We have to wait and see.
Right, taking baby steps one at a time. Now, the thing is, though, Professor, still some economic hurdles between the two countries linger, namely the issue of the so-called whitelist. When do you think Japan will return South Korea to its favorable trading partner list? Will it be anytime soon? When could the timeline be?
Yeah, good point. And yes, the sooner the better. Economy-wise, it's apparent. Restoring normal trade relationship would be mutually beneficial for high-tech industries, including semiconductors. Why? Time and timing is the core of competitiveness in this field. Diplomacy-wise, a beacon light sending signal. With the announcement of a solution for forced labor during the Japanese colonial period, cooperation of economic diplomacy has begun in earnest. Tangent point of economy and diplomacy is restoring wide country status, as you mentioned. Prime Minister Kishida confirmed that the Japanese government was in the process of reinstating Korea to its wide list of trusted trading partner, conferring preferential export treatment. The two leaders agreed to make joint efforts, and Japan's decision to put Korea back onto the white list will bring a greater synergy for the industry. Joint research in advanced technology sectors will also be expected, including space technology, quantum technology, and artificial intelligence. In short, the recent bilateral summit has opened things up for improvement, so we can now anticipate cooperation between the two countries in the industries, and this will contribute to the forward-looking regional growth.
Right. Now, some experts are saying that Tokyo might add Seoul back on its whitelist after the G7 summit. Are you on the same page?
Economic diplomacy has two approaches. The one is belligerent competition in the form of economic war or trade battle. And the other is a mutual cooperation, that of economic partnership or multilateral FTA. Solidifying economic partnership, especially among G7 countries, is always better alternative because it's a gains-taking game among other member countries, while economic war is only a painstaking game. President Yoon underscored the normalcy of bilateral relations, that Korean semiconductor manufacturers and excellent Japanese subsidiaries can build a solid semiconductor supply chain together. President Yoon has requested the Japanese equipment companies to invest in new semiconductor investment worth 300 trillion won in the metropolitan area of Korea. I suppose now comes the time of negotiation. Korea-Japan FTA might be on the table. Once stopped in 2009, a global supply chain came to make a transformation into regional supply chain within economic bloc such as G20, a lesson for risk inflation from the COVID-19 supply disruption. In this sense, Korea and Japan could further materialize cooperation on the global issues.
Right, and before we let you go, Professor, the inaugural session of an economic security dialogue took place, focusing on enhancing supply chain resiliency and energy security. Now, that sounds pretty new. How effective will this dialogue be for the two countries to actually move forward?
Once again, globalization has made a transition into the regionalization. So in essence, now is the time of a regional bloc, and then risk inflation is very, very important. In this sense, it is a beginning of the Korean and Japan as a type of regional integration in terms of supply chain. So in this sense, Korea and Japan could further materialize cooperation in the issues such as public health, energy, and climate changes.
Right. All right. Thank you, Professor Oh. Thank you so much again for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
President Yoon Suk-yeol marks his first year in office this week. Beefing up the economy has been on the top of his to-do list. Our Lee Dae-hyun looks back at the past year.
With a clear focus on freedom, innovation, fairness, and solidarity, the Yoon administration has been working on creating a private sector-led economy over the past year.
정부 주도가 아닌 민간 중심의 경제로 전환하여 일자리를 창출하고 중산층을 더욱 두텁게 할 것입니다.
The first step, boosting businesses. The Yoon administration has been working to ease more than 170 business regulations and 140 disciplinary measures by listening to the voices of frontline workers. It sought an increase in business investments by cutting corporate taxes, providing more tax credits for national strategic technologies, and temporary investment tax incentives. Next, innovation in the public sector. With a sound fiscal policy in mind, the government tightened the purse strings as the national budget bill had increased 5.1% this year from 2022. It has also focused on efficiency by reorganizing public institutes to reduce unnecessary quotas and expenses. The Yoon administration has also been proactively adopting an emergency framework to ease market concerns, including expanding the market liquidity public fund program amid volatile bonds and funds markets. 13 emergency economic meetings and over 20 ministerial roundtables were held to tame market fears. In terms of the housing market, it has eased some home loan regulations while abolishing tax penalties on multiple homeowners. Last but not least, the current administration is working to increase public welfare by protecting vulnerable groups. Despite global inflation, the country's inflation is back to the 3% level after 14 months and down from a peak of 6% last July. And it has reached an all-time high employment rate as well. Measures including lowering fuel taxes, providing energy vouchers, and expanding tariff rate quota on energy and food were also rolled out. Welfare expenses for low-income households rose 12% from the previous year. However, some concerns remain. Sluggish exports in the IT sector remain amid a drop in chip demand. Consumer prices, too, are still above the government's target, with fears lingering due to external factors such as commodity prices. One expert has some advice on the task the administration should focus on.
Other countries, for example, are using their budget to resolve the energy crisis while responding to industrial policy competition. The IRA and the US CHIPS Act are examples the South Korean government could look to.
He also agreed with how the government urged the importance of improving the market paradigm, such as nurturing talent and in creating a flexible industry ecosystem following industrial shifts. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
And the Yoon administration's industrial policy has been focusing on building up domestic high-tech industries to produce cutting-edge technologies as future growth engines. Shin Ha-young has more.
For the past year, the Yoon administration has been putting in efforts to nurture high-tech industries and has been making reforms to boost investment.
첨단 산업은 핵심 성장 엔진이자 안보 전략 자산이고 우리 일자리와 민생과도 직결되고 있습니다.
In line with its goal, last October, it identified 12 national strategic technologies, including chips, secondary cell batteries, and robotics, and decided to invest 25 trillion Korean won, or roughly $18.8 billion. Support for semiconductor chips, the country's major economic driver, has been particularly noticeable amid global competition to take the lead in the chip industry. The government earlier announced its plan to make the Seoul metropolitan area home to what would be the world's biggest hub for making system chips. It has also taken steps to support corporate activities through tax benefits. Through the so-called K-Chips Act, the tax deduction rate for conglomerates and medium-sized businesses in selected tech industries has risen from 8% to 15%, while for smaller businesses, it has risen from 16% to 25%. Boosting operations and exports of nuclear power plants has been also on the agenda under the goal to make the country a nuclear reactor superpower. Construction will soon resume at the Shinano nuclear power plant on reactors 3 and 4, which were halted in 2017 under the previous government's nuclear phase-out initiative. In terms of artificial intelligence, the government decided to spend around $300 million this year in spending infrastructure to develop AI. It also plans to nurture 10,000 software companies in the service sector at the center of an AI ecosystem by 2026. There were also remarkable achievements in the space industry, with the country's successful second launch of its homegrown Nuri space rocket, making it the 7th country in the world to have developed a space launch vehicle that can carry a satellite of more than a ton. This was followed by its first lunar orbiter Danuri, which successfully entered its target orbit of the moon. On top of that, there are plans to establish a National Aeronautics Administration, or Korean version of NASA, within this year. One expert said the Yoon administration's early moves have encouraged investment.
Delays in legislation and policy-making hinder firms from investing. But over the past year, various policies were made regarding advanced industry strategies, reducing uncertainties for the firms. They have also absorbed a significant portion of investment risks.
He added that the government should continue to engage with the private sector through effective communication channels so that companies can better accept policies. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Matthew Ashley, and we now turn over to stories from around the world. We begin in the Gaza Strip, where Israeli soldiers and Palestinian militants have exchanged some of the heaviest fires seen in the last 9 months. According to Israel, Palestinian militants fired over 460 rockets. 3 hit residential areas in Israel, but most were intercepted or fell in open areas. Israel also said that it's hit 130 militant targets so far. Medics in Gaza report that at least 6 people have been killed, 4 of whom were confirmed as militants. This follows airstrikes from the Israeli Defense Force on Tuesday, which targeted Islamic Jihad militants. The strikes killed 15 people, including 3 militant commanders. Now turning over to the United Kingdom, where its fertility regulator has confirmed the birth of babies that were made using the DNA of 3 people in an experimental technique. Announced on Wednesday, it's a first for the UK. Called mitochondrial donation treatment, the procedure is a form of genetic modification. It's meant to prevent the inheritance of rare genetic mitochondrial diseases, such as muscular dystrophy, epilepsy, and heart problems. It does this by replacing defective genetic material from a mother with a healthy version from another woman's egg. Only 0.1% of the donor's genetic material is used. According to the UK's Human Fertilisation and Embryology Authority, fewer than 5 babies have been born this way. In the United States, Republican lawmaker George Santos has pled not guilty to 13 federal charges at a New York court on Wednesday. The New York representative is accused of misusing funds, illegally receiving unemployment benefits, and lying to Congress about his income. It comes amid a wave of revelations that the 34-year-old has embellished his background, including claiming to have lost his mother in the 9/11 Twin Towers attack, and that he had previously worked at Citigroup and Goldman Sachs. Santos has called the case inaccurate, describing the investigation into him as a witch hunt, and is refusing to step down from Congress. If found guilty, Santos could face up to 20 years in prison. And finally, Hollywood star Robert De Niro has become a father for the 7th time at the age of 79. The veteran actor revealed that he had recently welcomed his new child during an interview on ET Canada to talk about his upcoming film about my father. The 2-time Oscar Award winner did not reveal much else, including the identity of the child's mother, although his most recent reported romance was with martial arts instructor Tiffany Chen. De Niro has 6 other children from 3 previous relationships. His oldest child is 51.
Good morning. It looks to be another very warm day under sunny skies, so you need to take extra care when out in the sun due to rising levels of UV rays. UV levels will be very high everywhere, while ozone levels will also reach bad levels today. So use sunblock and hats and drink plenty of water to stay hydrated. Western parts of the country will have higher daytime highs this afternoon. Gwangju and Daejeon will see a high of 27 degrees Celsius, so top ratings will be hovering around 25 degrees in the west. Meanwhile, regions on the east coast, including Sokcho and Ulsan, will see a high of 18 degrees, along with easterly winds today. Air quality will be decent in most areas, but some parts of the west will have bad dust levels in the first half of the day. But air quality should return to normal as the day goes on. Now, heat will subside a bit with more clouds moving in tomorrow, and rain is in the forecast on the south coast and Jeju Island from tomorrow night into Saturday. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That wraps up today's New Day at Arirang. Thanks for watching.